So this user stories is something, it's a detailed definition of each requirement or a feature. So this will be, you will be very well understanding that, see, this will be even more precise compared to the features. Okay. And this will be owned by the developers. We will be having developers in the Scrum team, right? So in the Scrum team, developers will be there. So they will be owning this. And this user stories include subtasks created by the story owners. See, this subtask I will explain you later. But right now, just have an understanding that user story is something which is a detailed definition of each requirement. And then one important point is stories are smaller pieces of functionality and they directly map to an epic. See, we are dividing the epic into user stories, right? So each epic should have one user story mapped, correct? And each user story should have an epic mapped, correct? Then only we will be able to understand whether we are completing with an epic or not. And then an important criteria is, I told for an epic, you should be able to complete within 1 quarter or even less than that. When it comes to story, it should fit within 1 sprint. That means within 2 weeks, the team should be able to complete. That is a very important criteria. So what is the meaning of that? Means an user story should be as much small as possible. You need to slice or you need to split the user stories as much small as possible so that the team can complete within 1 sprint. One more important point here is an user story should answer what you are expecting, what the business is expecting. I will tell you an example here. See, for user registration feature, see here we have mentioned that we need 3 features, right? One is user registration, payment via credit cards, payment via. So this user registration I'm going to divide into user stories. Okay. For user registration feature, we can have the following stories. So we can divide into 3 stories. Story number 1 is, as a new customer, I should be able to register on the website using my first name, last name, email ID, and password. This you know very well, right? In most of the websites, they follow the same. If you want to register it, right? They're going to use the first name, last name, email ID, password they're going to ask, and then you can register. And then second story, you can even split this functionality as a new customer, I should be able to register to the site using my social credentials. You would have seen an option, login via Facebook, login via Google, or login via Twitter, right? So that option also should be available. So this is something, this registration is separate story. And then as a new customer, I should be aware of any errors that need to be corrected while filling up the registration form. This is nothing but, for example, see, you would have known the registration page, their first name, last name, email ID, password. They would have made it mandatory, few fields, and few fields may be optional. So if the mandatory fields the user is missing while registration, then an error should be prompted, right? It should throw an error, correct? So for that, we can have a separate user story. So on the whole, now you are able to understand how they are dividing, right? So I clearly explained what is the theme, epic. So epic, see, now if you are going the vice versa, if you are completing these, everything, user registration will be completed, right? That means user registration feature will be completed. And then when we are completing the user registration, the other option, whatever mentioned here, then on the whole, the epic will be completed. So this is how the hierarchy works in an Agile. Got it, right? So now the last part I mentioned is, see, here I have explained up to this with an example. Now the story, how they are dividing into tasks and what is the use of a task. Okay, so here I am just taking this example. As a new customer, I should be able to register on the website using my first name, last name, email ID, password, so that my profile is created successfully. So this story will be owned by one developer. For example, consider like you are a developer and you may be owning. So what you need to do is you need to divide this, whatever work you are going to do. That means how you are going to complete this user story, you should be creating task under the story. So actually speaking, in real time, if you are using Jira, people will be using, see, Jira is a project management tool. And if you are using Jira, people will create a subtask under each story. That means they are going to divide. How they are going to divide is, they are going to divide the development related activities into one task. And then back-end activities into one task. Separately, they are going to divide. Okay. So here, task is nothing but the actual work which you need to complete in order to complete a story. That is known as the task. Let me explain with example. And I told already very clearly, one user story should take at the max of one sprint, and whereas this task you should be able to complete within less hours or less days. You should be able to complete. And the task should tell how you are going to complete the user story very clearly. Let me reiterate the same example here. See here, the development task. So when it comes to the development task which is required to complete the user story mentioned above, as a new customer, I should be able to register. See here, task number 1 is you need to handle UI as well as backend, right? That means front end as well as backend, right? So first, the user you should create a UI in such a way that the user should be able to fill up a form. So that UI form, that is one subtask. Okay, that is one task. And creating a backend DB table that can store customer information. That is the second task. And the next task is password encryption. You need to encrypt the password, right? Password should not be visible, right? So that encryption around the password field. And then user registration, you need to have a separate API creator. API, you are aware, right? Have you worked with APIs before? APIs? So it's actually an application program interface. If the application will be interacting within different modules using API. Okay. And then you should have QA task. QA task means QA, you know, right? Testing, right? So QA task means testing means under the testing, like what you will be doing, you need to create the test cases for the story. And then if you are using automation scripts you need to write. And then for execution, you need to have one task. And then if you want to create test data and then you need to check, then you need to identify and create test data. So on the whole, if you are completing all these activities, then only this story will be completed. Correct? Am I right?
Yes.
Now clear, right? Now you are able to understand. I'm just coming back to the same table. Now you are able to understand from the bottom how task, story, future, initiative or epic, then team. Yes. Okay, perfect. Just moving to the next. Okay, the same only. And see, you should very well understand that if all these things are completed, then only this story can be marked as done. Otherwise, we cannot mark the story as done. There is, for example, if only, without, some people may be doing some agile anti-pattern. Okay, so what they will do is they will do the development separately and testing separately. No, we should not do in that way. Development and testing should happen concurrently.
At the same time.
Yes, correct. So once consider you are a developer, so you have completed this, then you will deliver this code to the testing team. So testing team will do the testing and you will start working on the next story.
Yes.
This is how an entire